He is currently the president of Fort Bend Housing Financing Corporation. He's the VP of the Houston Urban League CDC. He's the National Association of Realtors MLS chair. For those of you that don't know what MLS means, it's the multiple listing service. That is the system that we as real estate agents and brokers use to find you guys beautiful homes. He is also, and has been for 32 years, he is the talk show host for the Real Estate Corner, which can be heard on 1360 AM and Iconic Television. He is also the National Association of Realtors liaison to the Executive Committee. And lastly, but certainly not least, he's the Texas Realtors Regional VP Texas Realtors Regional 14 VP. And can you tell us what that is again?
Well, the state is divided up in regions, and each region has a couple of VPs. Houston just happens to have 14, and I'm one of those 14. So the executive board makes all the decisions for the realtors, and then they vet everything, then they bring it out to the board to vote on.
And guys, this is just a small piece of his resume. He didn't put this on here, but I'm gonna say this. Was it 2002 that you were the chair of the Houston Association of Realtors? Was that 2002?
I had hair then, and I was 200002. You're right.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
All right.
Yes.
We're working with a legend today. What a resume.
What a resume.
That's it. That's it. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Now, Shad, I'm ready to dive right in.
Yeah,
You know,
we have
the
questions.
buyer-
Let's get this party started.
My question is this: do you really believe that the buyer agent will be replaced with future technologies, and why or why not?
Good question. I think the change is going to happen in buyers' representation. It's not going to be the form that we see today. I don't ever believe that technology is going to take buyer agency out. The reason for that, because there are two, how many of us had a perfect transaction? None of us. And so when you have a transaction and you have things go wrong, technology can't fix that.
That's right.
Only a conversation and sitting down and working with your buyers and sellers to make that work.
That's it.
Absolutely,
That's
that makes
it.
sense.
Okay.
So I have a question, and your resume tells us that you're qualified to answer this question. There's a lot of talk at the state and at the local level about the buyer's agent being replaced, right? We had that conversation, but what's being done? What's really being done at the Texas state and maybe national level related to protecting the buyer's agent's role?
Okay. One of the things, and let's start at the top, which is NAR, National Association of Realtors. So the issue there is that some trial lawyers filed a lawsuit against all the major franchises, saying that the sellers were hoodwinked because they paid for the representation. They shouldn't have paid for the representation.
And when you say franchises, you mean Remax?
Remax, Realogy, Keller Williams is a big part. All of them got a large lawsuit. So what the trial lawyers did, they went after the ones with the deepest pockets. Then the DOJ also sued, saying that money was taken from sellers to give to buyers agents who didn't represent them. And so the lawsuit, the DOJ, for example, and the realtors went to a compromise. Well, when the administration changed, the new DOJ came in, Department of Justice, and said, hey, we don't like the compromise, we want to keep it open, which has never been done.
Wow.
Where they've agreed to a settlement and then they reversed it.
Oh, wow.
Then the trial lawyers came with their buyers. They sued in Illinois, I think St. Louis, and said that the sellers said, hey, we would have made more money if we didn't have to pay for the buyer's agent. So everything's been evolved around this lawsuit. And so it's going to go on for a long time, I think.
So?
I think what you're going to see is a change in how we do business. Example, have you noticed some of the builders don't want to pay you commission anymore?
Yes.
Zero. And you're seeing listing agents offer less money in deals. And so you're seeing all these things happen, but what I think people don't realize is the buyer's agent is the glue that holds the deal together.
Bringing the buyer to the deal.
Yeah.
Bringing the buyer
we
to
bring
the
it
deal.
to it.
You can list the house all day, but if you don't have that buyer's agent bringing that buyer,
You're just practicing.
You're practicing it. And so what I see in today's market right now is that we've got to show more worth. The realtors, National Association of Realtors Attorneys, I've been in the room hearing them talk, they on top of it. What people don't realize is that it's more to selling a house. And the reason people want representation is that we negotiate, we work out deals, we tell you which is best houses, with insurance, we talk about interest rates, we talk about all the things that make a transaction go.
and we put out
Right.
fires that they never even knew existed.
That part.
Yeah, and so, go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Shad, because I mean, you mentioned earlier that, you know, some things are going to take a conversation to get things worked out. But many people think that in today's with so much technology, so much data science and all of that, do you think that the data science will give them all of the information that it is that they need? So
No.
many of them are going to Google and going to,
Yes.
you know, just online.
Great question, but let me give you your answer. You need us to interpret the information that you just got.
Absolutely.
So that's
Yeah.
the difference.
That part.
For me to tell you
Yeah.
what's real, what's not real, how it works. So it's like us going to school to learn to be a realtor or a realtist. You can go and get all the books since you can get, but unless you out there working it every day, you really don't know what you're doing.
That's
and,
true.
and people perceive that education means I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And so I use this analogy on my show all the time. People have driver's license and can't drive. So you can have a real estate license and can't do it. And so
We certainly know that in Houston.
yeah, the whole lawsuit, guys, in my opinion, are going to affect minorities more than anybody else. We are the ones that have not bought houses. We're last on the totem pole. We need if I've never done it before, how am I going to get representation? So what the DOJ is saying and the trial lawyers are saying, you should pay for it out of your pocket. Well, we all
already
know
barely being able to
barely get
afford
enough
homes
money
anyway.
to buy a house. So
Right.
how are you going to have that? So if I had to give an analogy, any of us done commercial business, you know how commercial real estate works. It
Yes.
doesn't work smooth.
At all.
No ethics, it's just
Yes.
you go
Wild,
with what
wild
you
west.
know.
That's what you know. Wild west.
And that's what's going to happen in,
Really?
in residential. So what I see us doing to fix this problem is that we've got to improve our customer service. We've got to tell people what we do, and we've got to be involved in the transaction. You know, you've got to be involved in your transaction. If you're working with builders, you should be going with that builder to pick out things, going to the lots,
Talking to the lender.
Talking to the lenders. So many of us
Walkthroughs.
take our buyers, drop them in on the lender, and walk away. But who's to say that the builder's going to do the best thing?
That's right.
And if you are a buyer out there, you need representation walking into a builder. That sales counselor,
I
doesn't
tell
matter.
all of when my clients are choosing new construction, I tell that builder, I'm not one that you're gonna see today and never see
At the
again.
closing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're gonna
Right.
hear from me on a weekly basis.
And what
At
people
minimum.
don't know is that the buyer's agency has really only been around since the early 90s.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
as long as we've been alive and practicing real estate, it's always been there, but that's not to say that it's always going to be.
Right.
And you answer the question I was going to ask is how do we ensure that we have representation in the room where the decisions are really being made on whether there will be a buyer's agency or not?
Well, I think all the organizations that are involved in real estate need to get involved. NARAP, Asian American Association. It seems as though it's just the realtors fighting it, but it needs to be a complete front
Right.
to get this thing done. And the thing that really bothers me more than anything else is that the buyer agents keeps the deal together.
That's it.
And when you survey the buyers, 90% of them says they would use the same agent again and was happy with the
Yes.
service.
Yes.
So we're doing our job, you know, and so it's going to change. You may see flat fees. The issue there with flat fees is that, do they have the money to close? So if I'm short of money, where does the money come from? How many of us contribute commissions just to make a deal work in the transaction? So it's a lot of things going on out there that I really, really feel that we're going to have to button down our agents. We're going to have to improve customer service and let people know what we do. And think about it. All the deals that you guys are going out and you never got paid for. How many buyers you sold and they called you, killed me, and said, my brother just got his license. And I know we've been working together, but I'm going to have to go over here.
I'm gonna go trust this person who just got out of school with the largest investment I've ever made in my life.
And not just that, I've also gotten a couple of times, I've learned how to navigate it now though, but I want to hear from you. The open doors, the open door, the Zillows,
Redfin or something like that.
They are having, now they will contact those sellers before the property hits the market and offer them, an exuberant amount of what they could sell, what they will buy their property for. And pretty much it's not what a buyer's agent would
except for a deal.
Correct. Hold that thought. We're going to go to commercial break. This is Red Door Conversations. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Crystal Placide. I'm a realtor with Kimberly Lane Properties. I've been licensed since 2016, and I've been with Kimberly Lane Properties since 2017. I chose to come to Kimberly Lane Properties because when Kim and I met, it was just a match. She has molded me and instilled all the tools necessary for me to be successful in this career. Kim has been very motivating, supporting, and inspirational in my career and both personal life. If I had to do this all over again, there's no other place I would rather be than here at Kimberly Lane Properties.
Welcome back to Red Door Conversations, Real Talk and Real Tea. We are here with a Texas real estate legend talking about the buyer's agent representation and really asking the question, is it about to be obsolete? But before we left off on the last segment, we were talking about how Open Door, Redfin, and some of these big major corporations are affecting the buyer's agency. And you left off saying something. I want you to finish that thought.
Well, 40% of the sales that are being done right now are investors. So those are the Open Doors, the Redfins, and Offer Pads. So what they're doing is buying these houses at a discount. Okay. Some of them are coming back on the market. Some of them are being leased with a lot of these investors. So these first-time home buyers, you're relying on your buyer's agent to be able to get in once again and negotiate those deals on there. Now, a lot of those houses are not hitting the market because they've already bought them. But I will share something with you the other day. I found a house out in the northwest side of town that I think Open Door had. It wasn't in the computer. They had it at exclusive. So they didn't even put it in the computer. So as a buyer's agent.
Would it have been under that private seller?
We're doing some research on that.
Okay.
They did not have it in the computer, but had to sign and call it exclusive.
Okay. Wow.
And keep in mind, these companies have where the buyer can just go into the door, put the code in and walk in and see the house. So the whole key to buyer agency is that you need us to negotiate, work the deal out, insurance, talk about interest rates, tell you where the market is going. You need all of that.
Protect your interests. You need your interests protected.
Would you go into a court without an attorney for a major deal?
Or would you have a surgery without a physician or surgeon there to perform it?
Right.
Nope, not at all.
Not at all. So my feeling is that the buyer agency is here, but it's going to change, and it's never going to be obsolete, but I think it's going to change to what you see, because now you got to determine who's going to pay for it. And that's going to be the key. Now, I will share this with you. There's been some talk of the realtors going to Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae, and Freddie Mac and saying, you've got to figure out a way that buyers can finance their representation in the transaction. That is the key to it.
Got it. That's what's on the table now.
That's what they're talking about doing now. Because the reason the buyer agent can't get paid, the reason they're not getting paid is because who's going to pay for it? So if the buyer can finance, like you finance an appraisal, you finance other fees, why can't you finance my representation fee as long as the property appraises for that amount? So there's some talk about that's what's going on. So, you know, the change in our market, we just got to adjust. And I think as we give more showing people what our worth is, because that's it. What makes it go.
Right.
You can't sell it without me bringing you a qualified buyer.
That part.
Yeah. And if you put a for sale by owner, and this is the thing for sale by owners out there, 18% of the for sale by owners sell the property for less than what they listed it for. They get 18% less, excuse me, than what the market rate is.
Wow.
Because who's going to find out if the buyer qualified? Who's going to talk to you about inspections? You got to have this all going together. It's a synergy.
There is value.
It's
there
totally
is value.
It is value. And it's value with new, and you got some of the people who are watching us today will go buy a new home without representation. I don't understand it.
Now, Shad, what I was going to say too, from a listing agent standpoint, I don't know that I would want to work with that buyer as well as that seller, because there is no representation, simply because it could not be afforded. I can see some things happening from a perspective of, I didn't know this, or I didn't know that, or they didn't tell me this, or they didn't tell me that.
Good.
You hit the head on the nail.
That is good.
The head on the nail. What you're going to find out is you're going to have more lawsuits.
Yes.
Because even though I don't represent you, you're going to assume that I represent you.
Exactly.
And you're being fair with me.
That part right there.
Exactly.
And not knowing all the integral parts, like sellers not knowing that there should be a seller's disclosure, no matter, you know, if you have an agent or not.
Absolutely.
So we know those things because we're trained, and that's
There
a
you
part
go.
of us adding value. Making
Has the house flooded? You've got to ask that question. I got a seller's disclosure
That's
the other
it.
day that didn't have flooding on it, that that the house flooded. 2 days before closing, the listing agent calls me
Wow.
and says, you know, my owner called me and told me the house did flood. Well, why didn't you know that in the beginning? You remodeled the house, so you had to have it. So as a buyer's agent, I'm going to ask those questions. I'm going to explain flood
Wow.
insurance.
Yes.
What's the best insurance policy to get? No, you shouldn't buy on this busy street.
There you go. Those things.
Those
yes.
are the things that we bring to
When
the
you are
table.
buying a house, you're not thinking about all of those details. You just are not.
As you should not be. You are the consumer. That's why
Exactly.
we're here to protect your
Exactly.
interests.
Right, absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
I always think of it this way: if I'm in a lawsuit and there's a plaintiff, there's a defendant, I would not want to use the same attorney. And
Oh, that's
Whose
good,
best
Marla.
interests are,
Yes,
you know,
right.
where's your loyalty?
And and so I think
I'm
from
using
a
that, Marla.
standpoint, I think from a standpoint of,
It makes sense.
Well,
It
think
just
about-
makes
I need somebody.
You need representation. Think about how many times men go in, getting a divorce, and he uses his wife's attorney. What happens in that
Right. Oh, right. That part.
Something I kind of have a little experience.
Flat pockets.
Flat pockets is what happens, right?
So that causes me to wonder, do buyers really know what all it entails, what all buyer representation is about? And so,
How do we get that out there? What's the best avenue from your experience for us to change that narrative, or at least enhance the narrative, so people know what it is we do and what value we bring to the table?
Well, one of the things that I do, and I'll share it with you, when I get a buyer, I have a consultation. You come in my office, I take you through the process. We talk about the market, we talk about interest rates, we talk about, do you qualify affordable housing. I think the initial consultation lays it on out.
Sets
And then
the
the
tone.
question as a buyer's agent, is anybody else helping you make this decision? Because we shouldn't be looking at housing unless that person's with you.
That's right.
So I think the consultation would help. I also believe as you flood them with all the information, because what happens is that when you get ready to buy a house, we've all experienced it, everybody got some advice for them. Mama ain't bought a house in 30 years, gonna tell you how the process
Cousin
works.
that lives in an apartment is going to tell you the best house to buy.
Or the boyfriend who's not putting any money up,
Right.
gonna tell you that
Women
this
just
house
want
is
his
not
name
the
on the
right
deed.
place.
But he wants to be there at closing.
Yeah.
That's why I say want his name on the deed, want to sign the deed.
Right. So there's a lot of that, and that's why the buyer agency is going to continue to be important. It's just how we're going to get paid in the transaction
Yeah.
that I think is going to be the key. And I think sometimes we make it so easy. People think they can do it and they don't need it. How many people you sold houses? You know, I think I'm gonna get my real estate license.
Oh my God.
You made this so easy.
Oh my God, I wish. It's like nails on a chalkboard.
It just seems so fun. You just seem like this is not a game.
This is my job. This is our livelihood and
Yeah,
career.
I mean, you've not seen anything that has happened in the background.
Right.
Yes.
Because our job is to keep you from seeing what's
There you go.
happening.
That's
Bring
right.
it home. That's what
That's
we're supposed
right.
to do.
That's right. So as we go forward in this new normal, what can small to medium-sized brokerages do to help their agents pivot? Aside from the consultation meeting, which I think is key.
Customer service, we got to improve. Return phone calls.
Focus.
Don't live on a text. Even though we're in this age, ask your buyer, how do you want to be communicated with? That's the key. So I think we've got to take technology and use it in the process, but the human side of it is always going to be there. It's always going to be there.
All right. So what we're going to do at this moment, we've enjoyed having you on the
Yes, we
show,
have.
but
Oh, wow.
unfortunately, we have run out of time. So we're going to have to see you guys later. And thank you so much, Mr. Bogany,
you.
for being on
Yes.
the show.
I hope I've been some help.
Oh, my
Absolutely
goodness.
you have.
Yes.
And we will see you guys next time on Red Door Conversations, Real Talk and Real Tea.